Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. We're being broadcast live tonight, of course, on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, and on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. How's it going? I hope you guys are just having a fantastic day that ends in Y. And no matter how you are listening, please stop in and say hi in one of the chat rooms, or you can always send me the email at wildepaisley@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show, please do so. You can either do the cash tag, that's $TheSpacesBetween, or you can check out the website at www.paisleywwild.com. Phone lines are open tonight. That number is 213-233-3998. Or if you're across the pond in the UK, that number is 44203-393-2871. And I think I did it right this time. No random buttons being pushed. So if you can hear me, let me know. If you can't hear me, let me know. It's just been one of them things, you know? Yeah. Sweet. I got a good sound. Yay. Thank you, Lucky. How's it going? I didn't call you today. I'm a bad friend. I took a nap. Not that that's an excuse, but that's what I did. And I crafted some stuff. I got to play in my crafting studio, which is good. You know, sometimes we just got to embrace that inner creative streak and just kind of let it come out however it's going to come out. And it's not because, you know, we aren't creative all the time, because a lot of us are. Sometimes you just got to do the things. So I have my candle lit for my friend Angie, who's still in the ICU down in Coeur d'Alene at Kootenai Medical. If you want to donate, I have a link that I can send to y'all to support her. From what I understand, she's going to be there for a couple weeks yet. Due to some things that happened that shouldn't have happened, there is some longer-term damage to her lungs that she has to heal from. So, you know, I gotta tell you, I have so many mixed feelings about COVID since I had it even. I am not pro-vaccine, but that's just my opinion. It has to do with my beliefs and my physical health. My doctor actually recommended that I not get it due to my autoimmune disorders. And that's fine. I understand there's other potential repercussions for not having the vaccine, and I get it, okay? My biggest word of advice is do your research and make the best decision you can for you and your family. That's all there is to it. And, you know, it's the COVID virus is not something to joke with. It's not something to play around with. If you have it, you have it. You take care of yourself, drink your fluids, get your treatments, whatever it is you need to do. Don't treat it like your common cold. There's enough herbal type remedies that can help, or there are quite a few different medical options as well. Just pay attention. If you're sick, pay attention to it. Don't let it coast. Because it'll sneak up and it'll beat you up. So, that being said, I was exploring the interwebs, trying to decide what to talk about. Pathos.com had an interesting article, and it's something I hear or read about often in social media. People thinking they've been hexed or cursed or something. Sometimes they feel it's a familial curse, something that's been passed down through the generations. Sometimes they feel like they've bumped into somebody, or somebody has cursed them or hexed them. And, I mean, it's a common theme. So, figured I should maybe talk about it just a skosh, because people are concerned. And And the reality is, yes, you really can curse someone or hex someone. Psychic attacks are real, absolutely. And then there's the people who come out like, oh, I think I've been hexed. And some of these people seem like they've been hexed or cursed often. I don't know that it really happens that truly often. I feel that true hexing or true cursing is more of a rare thing. This article is by John Beckett. Link will be in the show notes. And yes, it happens. It's not as common as social media portrays it. Kind of like quicksand is not the same issue as in the world today as it was portrayed on TV when I was growing up in cartoons and TV shows and such. It just isn't. It doesn't randomly show up no matter where you're at, which is interesting. So, most people who might want to hex you or hex someone don't necessarily have the skills. Now, as I've mentioned in the past, I feel that hexes and curses and blessings often require the same amount of energy. It's just being directed slightly differently. One's more positive and the other is more negative. So, I mean, a hex takes a lot of energy to pass it off onto you and then to try to hold it in place for longevity. And most people, honestly, no matter how vicious they might seem or mean or nasty, whatever, the Karens of the world, I guess, they still have other things they want to do. You're not their only target. So the odds of you actually being hexed or cursed is pretty rare. Idle words are not curses. So if someone says, oh, you can just go to hell, is that a curse? Technically, yes. But it's a common phrase used in the American language. So is it really a curse? No, it's more of a statement, if you will, or a go out, get away from me. You know, it's not a true curse. It's more of a go away and leave me alone. So that being said, just because it doesn't happen often doesn't mean it doesn't happen, because it does. There is quite a few instances throughout history up to the present day that, you know, curses and hexes and other manipulative types of magic do happen. It's just not often. It's a smaller sect or clique, if you will. And occasionally we do run into people who truly do mean us harm in the waking world, in the real world today. And, you know, a lot of folks that are new to the pagan path or new to witchcraft often are worried about being hexed or cursed. Perhaps they come from an Abrahamic tradition family and they're worried about it because of, you know, honestly, the narrow-minded people out there that do cursing and hexing because of your spiritual choices, there's not as many of them out there as there could be, I suppose. A lot of it is just disappointment from family that's being spread. So the best way to counteract most of those hexings or curses is to, instead of worrying about that, spend your time building a very strong spiritual practice instead. And once you've been, you know, doing this spiritual practice for a period of time, you will probably run into a legitimate hex, perhaps directed at you, or perhaps directed at someone you know, and you'll recognize it. So, with that being said, hexes, curses, and psychic attacks do happen, and most of those labels are very, very loosely defined. According to Mr. Beckett, a hex is a one-time, one-shot, specific magical working intended to harm someone. The typical, go to hell, that one. A curse is generally deeper, more complicated, and longer lasting. Like, your children are going to be worse than you when they get to your age. How many parents have said that to their children and then see it happen? It can happen, yeah. And then a psychic attack or energy attack is someone trying to harm or influence you in real time. Although psychic attacks can be set up to be automated and persistent, kind of like advertising or something like that. But in those categories do actually overlap a bit. And there are considered types of baneful magic, if you will. And figuring out what to do about each of them is a matter of examining your specific circumstances and then putting everything in the right category. In other words, don't get hung up on the terminology. If it's something that's not good, it's just not good. I mean, bad is bad. So, Lucky in the chat room says, screw it, do a send back spell. Oh, good. Yes. Send back spells are pretty fantastic. So if you have been cursed, it's reflected back. Often you can use a mirror and some quartz. And I've done that, actually. I've put it under the bed where my pillow is and send that energy right back to the sender. It's like return to sender, address unknown. Yeah. Definitely. Sorry, it's a little scalding today. It's a raspberry mocha. Nom, 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 nom. So, how do you determine if you've been hexed? Well, unfortunately, there is no quick and easy test to determine if you've been hexed. It's generally a process of elimination. Let's see, Lucky says, if you were cursed or blessed, do one to send good energy back to you. Spread the love, right? You know, actually, yes. There's nothing wrong with sending that love and energy and that positivity right back to the person that sent it to you. Because often, the people that are in tune enough with us to send us those good things, the good feelings, the good energy and such, probably need it as much as we do. That's just all there is to it. So, if you go to Dr. Google and you type in signs that you have been hexed, you will get a lot of results. Some of it will be Pinterest, some of it will be other websites. The list of miscellany that you might find is quite extensive, and it's vague. It's worse than vague booking. It's insane. Because there are all sorts of symptoms of hexes and curses, and so the list is pretty much useless as a diagnostic tool. So, when someone comes to me and says that I think I've been hexed, I generally ask them why. That's just why do you think you've been hexed is the first question I ask. And I generally make notes as I'm doing this. Mr. Beckett says the same thing. Often the answer is, well, I've had some really crappy luck lately. Well, that happens. Maybe you got sick or had an accident, lost something of value, lost your job, relationships are rough, that kind of thing. And the tangible problems, the things you're actually experiencing, also have bad feelings associated. Maybe about life or the situation or all the above. So your very first step is to just kind of eliminate the mundane causes. So diseases, illnesses, often caused by bacteria, viruses, viri, and can be amplified by things like fatigue or compromised immune system or poor diet or poor health choices. If you smoke a lot and you end up with bronchitis, well, there's some correlation between heavy smoking and potential lung illnesses. So just be aware. And accidents often happen when we're distracted or fatigued or impaired, or if we're not really paying attention to the potential risk factors. And then when bad things happen, often they just make us feel bad. Especially when we try to assign existential meaning to random events. Because sometimes, no matter how hard you want to point the finger at someone else, you should be pointing the finger at yourself. So a friend of mine used to tell me, a friend of mine, family member, I don't remember exactly. It's been so long. Basically, every time you point your finger at someone else, you need to look at your hand a little closer because you're pointing your finger at someone else, but you've got 3 fingers pointed right back at you. So, oops, sorry. When you're pointing your finger at someone else, 3 pointed right back at you. So instead of pointing, evaluate those fingers pointing back at you. Are these things that are my fault? Did I cause this because I was tired? Maybe I binge watched a TV show and didn't get enough rest. Maybe I've been sick. Maybe I got exposed to the COVID and that's why I'm sick. They're kids. When kids go back to school, I swear they're walking petri dishes. Mini me ended up with a slight cold first of the year because, well, she hasn't really been around school kids for a little bit until this year. And so she got to experience a whole bunch of different germs and brought them home, and we all got to share. It was fantastic. And snotty noses everywhere. We're past that now. So, it happens. Because most times, bad things have ordinary causes, unfortunately. And it sucks. Hold that thought. Excuse me. Goodness. Diseases, as I mentioned, viruses, bacteria, that kind of thing. And since those bad things have ordinary causes, and sometimes multiple bad things happen, just means random chance is kind of against you right now. And that sucks, sadly. It really does. If you examine these different events mindfully, you can often find that an ordinary explanation really is the best explanation. You aren't hexed, you just need to be more mindful and remove some stress from your life, which I get. That's not always easy. It isn't. But, one of the definitions of magic is moving the odds into your favor, or maybe someone else moving the odds for you or against you. So if an ordinary explanation doesn't fit, that's when it's time to look for the extraordinary one. So in other words, if you are well rested, not really experiencing any extra stress from home or friends or family or work or anything like that, you've maintained your car regularly and you don't know why your brakes failed because you just haven't fixed or whatever, and they failed and you ran into the stop sign, that kind of thing happens. It doesn't mean it's a curse, not necessarily. It could just be a happenstance. But when you do sit back and you look at all the potential answers and you're like, there's just no way this could happen. I didn't do this. That's maybe when you need to look at that existential reason. So, is the problem in your own spiritual life? So before you look for external causes, like I mentioned, pointing the finger at someone else, take a good look in the mirror. So if your mundane life isn't going well, whether it's your fault or not, that can actually increase the odds that a bad thing might happen to you. So when you're looking at your spiritual life, and say you're ignoring your ancestors, maybe they're ignoring you. It happens. Our ancestors do check in on all of the family members, not just ourselves, and so maybe they're busy helping someone else. Generally speaking, our gods are not petty and vindictive, but if you promised to do something and then you didn't, well, they're not really shy about letting you know that they're disappointed. Especially if you ask for an initiation into a specific tradition or to work with a specific deity, and you're not holding up your end of the bargain, you may get an initiation in a way you didn't really anticipate. For me, Hecate has been a very mothering and very maternal. Now, not everybody experiences the maternal Hecate. Sometimes they experience the more vindictive and angry Hecate, and that happens. So it really does depend upon your approach and, are you holding up your end of the deal? How about the Fae? Or the fair folk, if you will. Have they set up in your area? If so, have you been less impeccable with your word? Or have you been less than respectful And when I say respectful, I mean by their standards, not yours. The older entities that exist on this earth, respect is a big deal. Your word has a lot of value, a lot of meaning. And so if you give your word that you're going to do something and you don't do it, it's like you cheated them. It's bad. So don't do that. Just be aware. And so while it might feel like you've been hexed, you may just be dealing with the consequences of your own actions. And that would take some in-depth personal action to remedy and get back onto the right path. And it's not easy, and I know this, and I'm not trying to be flippant or insensitive if you're trying to do the right thing and things just aren't working out. This is why you don't overcommit, especially with the Fae. We don't make promises. Be careful with the deals. And if you are working with a deity, make sure you're following through, doing your research. This is why we research kids. Just like if you talk to someone who's a Bigfoot expert, they generally say, don't leave treats for Bigfoot. They've come to expect it. And then if you miss a day and you don't leave a treat, they might get a little grouchy and knock a tree over onto your car. So just pay attention. It's be aware of your commitments. Be very aware. Be very, very, very aware. And if you think you may have overstepped some boundaries, or maybe not lived up to the expectations or the deals that you may have made with other entities, the supernatural entities, paranormal entities, however you want to put it, the divine, your ancestors, your spirit guides. I mean, I know that there have been times when my spirit guides and my ancestors and the deities I work with are all sitting there around me, total facepalm, wondering, WTF am I doing? And because I'm just stumbling from one disaster to the next, and I'm just reeling in shock, and I just don't know what's going on until I stop and sit and meditate a bit and refocus. Sometimes I have to do a quick cleansing on myself just because I need to wash that chaotic energy from myself and realize, oh, y'all have been shouting to get my attention and I just haven't been listening. So it's my bad, not your bad. And because I can own that, that's a big deal. It goes a long way. And then be prepared, to do some work to get back on the path that you need to be. When I think I've gone astray, I generally reach out to Epona. She tends to be a pathfinder, and sometimes you just need a pathfinder to get you back on the path. I ask her to help guide me to the right path. I don't know what the path is. But part of the reason why I feel that life is an adventure. We're going up and down and all around. Sometimes we're slogging through the mud, and sometimes we're climbing to the tallest mountain vistas. It's varied, but I generally ask for Epona to give me a little bit of guidance and make sure I'm going the way that I need to go, and trying to stay focused. So we are at the bottom of the first hour, so we're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to continue talking about hexing and who might want to hex you. Hey, Suzanne. And if you have questions, by all means, drop them in the chat room or give me a call. So we will see you in a few. Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. During the breaks, don't forget to check out iLife.com. iLife is the official sponsor for Truth Frequency Radio, and iLife combines the best non-psychoactive properties of the ayahuasca with some high-quality CBD to support you. Because, yes, hey, Aussie, long time no see. Oh, very well. Awesome. Yeah, Chris and Cherie are fantastic. I love them much as they are my people. Yes. Oh, goodness. So, yeah, check out the iLife. We need all the support we can get these days, kids, I tell you. So, tonight we're talking a little bit about this and a little bit about that. We're going to start with hexes, is where we're at right now. Before the break, we're talking about, is this something you did before you assume that somebody else hexed you? Are you the one who didn't do something you should have done, or maybe you did it? Just because sometimes we forget to check in with our own spiritual practice. It happens. And things go sideways, and we're like, oh no, everything's going sideways. And then you have the V8 moment, the aha. It's like, oh, that's what that was. Oh, I get it now. I've done that. Yeah. It's like, oh, I see. Yeah. So, when it comes to hexing, most people don't do it. It's the go to hellers, if you were. That doesn't necessarily mean you've been hexed. It just means someone told you to go to hell. But why do you want to go to their afterlife anyways? Just saying. All right. So, but you think you've been hexed. You've gone through the steps. It's like, I haven't done anything wild and crazy. I've been checking with the ancestors. I left the right offerings for my deities. I'm doing the things. And I still think I've got something going on. Yeah. Lucky says, or she's laughing. She goes, well said. Did you do something to get the bad juju that's getting you? If you did do, and you send a send-back spell when it's you, yeah, the juju kind of goes on superpower. So yeah, be careful with that. This way, honestly, a good cleansing before you do any of that stuff. And then, yeah, generally speaking, I have a rule before I commit to a hex or a curse of any kind. When I finally come to the conclusion that I need to do the thing, I give myself a 24-hour hold. And it's just something I do internally. It's like, all right, I am really upset about this thing. And, oh, my stars, am I really, really upset about this thing? But before I commit to that energy, to a curse or a hex, I give myself a 24-hour cooldown. If I am still as committed to doing it, all right, moving forward. But if I'm not, well, why would I go ahead and do the hex or the curse? I mean, generally, they do take some energy. And in my world, energy is finite. So why would I want to spit a bunch of energy out that I don't necessarily feel is needed? Suzanne asks a question. What if your ancestors did something? Can your descendants be hexed? So there's a couple of different schools of thought when it comes to lineage curses or lineage karma, if you will, or karmic debt. Some people feel that yes, 100%, if your ancestors were cursed, then it can carry on to the children or their descendants. And I think, yes, it could happen, but think about the energy that would have to be involved for a generational curse such as that, or hex. Because it's like picking up a gallon jug of milk and holding it. Okay, so you got a gallon jug of milk. You carry it for a little bit, with you wherever you're going. It's not so bad. But before too long, it starts getting heavy and your arm starts getting tired. And before too long, you just want to set it down, walk away. Well, I mean, can you carry it around for an hour? Sure. 2 hours? Maybe. In the same hand all the time? Can it be done? Yes. It just requires a lot of energy. So, that being said, generational curses or generational hexing, there has to be a lot of power behind it. There has to be a lot of energy for it to survive. Same with generational blessings. There's a lot of energy involved. And if the person who did the hex or the curse or the blessing didn't have the stores of energy needed to do the thing, then no, it won't be generational. It'll stop probably with the person that received it. Excuse me. So for the most part, I feel that no, generational curses don't usually happen. Very, very rare. Very, very rare. Also kind of depends what your ancestors did, I guess. Now, there are some that do feel that karmic debt, there's a karmic stain upon the family because of something their ancestors did. Maybe. I personally don't think so, in part because we're new. Now, can we have our own internal karmic debt or spiritual debt that we've carried because, for our soul that's carrying it? Maybe. It depends on what we've done in the previous lives. But generally, I think we're here to learn or to teach. One of the two, or a combination of the two. But no, I don't really feel that generational curses or hexing really exist. Just like I don't feel that generational blessings exist either. Because yeah, a lot of energy involved to accomplish either of those things. A lot. So, when you stop and think about who might want to hex you, and you're sure you've not pissed off your gods or your neighbors, the spiritual neighbors that you have, or the energetic neighbors that you have, ask yourself, who is going to go to the trouble of hexing you? And do they even have the ability to do it? Or do they know someone who would do it for them? Now, I have seen hexing or cursing as applied to individuals. A friend of my son's had a really messy divorce, and she was a practitioner, and she did a curse, and we had a upper level priestess come in and do an energetic cleansing on him, a spiritual cleansing on him, and it was like he lost 20 pounds in the course of 2 hours. It was insane. Just from being drugged down by the negative energy, and then that caused the messy divorce. So yes, I've seen it. I've done energetic healing on people that have had something like that, and it's real, but generally it doesn't go. It just is there, and it will fade away. Suzanne says, I would like to hex my neighbors to clean up their yard. Yeah. Sadly, that doesn't work that way. I know some of those people. It's like, wow, you have a rust farm, don't you? Oh, sad. So, often we joke around and say, hey, I'm going to turn my ex into a toad. Generally, people don't believe that you can really turn people into toads. So they never really think to try it. Because how often do we turn people into toads? Not very often. I won't say it won't happen. I'm just saying it's not common. Now, that being said, you don't have to know the person or know who it was that cast the curse or the hex to break it. It does make it easier, of course, and it makes it a little bit easier to keep them from doing it again. But most of the curse breaking techniques will work whether you know who it came from or not. And remember, beware of jumping to conclusions, especially beware of making accusations without proof. That is how the proverbial witch hunts get started. And the kind of real witch hunts with real witch burnings still happen today in some parts of the world, so be cautious. And if you don't know anyone who might have both the desire and ability to hex you, you may need to do some more digging, and it may be time to talk to a spiritual guide of some sort. A priest, priestess, that kind of thing, or a therapist. Why? Or, excuse me, divination can also help. Suzanne's funny. She says, my ex is already a toad. Yeah. There's a lot of exes that just seem to be channeling their inner toads on a regular basis. So, yeah. I have one of those. Took him 40 years to grow up. Isn't that sad? And I don't know that he really is. Anyways, different story for a different day. So yes, divination can help you figure out if you've been cursed or hexed or something. But you do need to choose your reader carefully, because identifying the root causes of a problem is one of the most appropriate uses of divination. You can do a reading for yourself. Absolutely break out your cards or runes or whatever it is you use and see what you can see. If you can't read for yourself, which is okay, you do engage or should engage a competent reader or diviner. And now, card readers, tarot readers are not all created equal, so make sure you're choosing your reader carefully. Sadly, the most common form of divination fraud is someone who tells you that there's a terrible curse upon you and then offers to remove it for a fee. Sometimes they might ask for thousands of dollars up front. Other times it starts small, and then it builds, and before you know it, an unsuspecting person has lost their life savings. People like that exist, sadly. I see them. I have encountered them, and they do make me want to pull out my eye teeth with a rusty pair of pliers. They just drive me insane. That being said, I have no problem calling them out when I see the fakes. Yeah. So the vast majority of readers, witches, and other people who do offer magical service are ethical practitioners. They really are. And they're trying to charge a fair price for a fair service. Now, as long as their rates are comparable to, say, a plumber or an electrician would charge for a similar amount of time, pay it and say thank you. But if their rates are more like a Wall Street lawyer or a CEO, or if they pressure you to pay for more readings and more workings that just aren't doing anything for you, walk away. There are quite a few different folks out there on social media. We'll just leave social media as the broad statement there that it could possibly be, that do offer readings for fees. I offer readings for fees. It's just, they do take time, they do take energy. And it happens. And when it comes to readings and stuff, if you're not 100% sure of the one you have, don't be afraid to get a second opinion. However, there's no reason why you should go reader shopping, if you will, until you find someone who will tell you exactly what you want to hear. But if a reader tells you something that just doesn't seem quite right, don't be afraid to ask for another opinion. Get another opinion. Suzanne, unfortunately, we don't have a large pagan or Wicca community around here. I'm in South Georgia. You're right in the middle of the Bible Belt. It's been kind of quiet, Aussie. Sorry, man. I have been out sick for most of October and parts of November, and so yeah, we're all just getting back in the habit of things. So, Suzanne, yeah, being in the Bible Belt does make it hard. Because if you walk or go into any community in the U.S., you're going to find at least one church, if not several. And everybody knows where the Christians go get together. Here in town, we've got quite a few churches. We even have a Quaker church, which really shocked me, but okay. Do we have one for pagans? No. But then pagans tend to be outside anyways and like to do things our own way. But it still would be nice to have a gathering place that we could all use someday. It's on my to-do list. I'm just not sure where it's on my list. It's just there. Excuse me. If you, what is it, Natural Witchcraft on Facebook, I'm one of the moderators there. It is a pretty large community. And it's, I think we've got 115,000 members. There are people from all over the world and in the Bible Belt, so you can connect there. It just is just a matter of, figuring out where you want to be. Actually, we also have Free Read Fridays, which just happened yesterday. So there's a list. You can connect and say, hey, I'd like a reading, and then the approved readers will, sign up and offer you a 3-card reading at no cost. So, yeah, which is cool. So, yeah, Cairo, Georgia. Yeah, you're right smack dab in the middle of the Bible Belt. So, it's kind of hard to be loud and proud as a pagan. I get it, honey. It's hard here in North Idaho sometimes. These people are weird. And yes, absolutely judgy. So, message me, PaisleyWild or wildepaisley@gmail.com. I'll try to connect you with the group, and that might help, Suzanne. So, when it comes to hexes and cursing, well, prevention really is the best cure. So, as long as you have a good, strong daily spiritual practice, that sets up one of the strongest defenses you could possibly have against hexing and cursing and just negative energy attacks. Just like you see a lot of Abrahamic traditions have daily devotions and such, there's no reason why we can't do a similar daily devotion. I generally do something every morning with my first cup of coffee. And it's just one of those things I do. It's like with I set my intention with that first cup, I'm going to have a good day, for crying out loud. And generally speaking, I do. Does it always work? No. But generally does. Ground and center every day. Grounding is so huge. Anytime I'm feeling an excess of energy or just really distracted by my energy, sometimes I get a restless leg syndrome. It's because I didn't ground and center often for that day. And it's frustrating. It is. And because why am I so twitchy? I just want to sleep. Oh, that's fine. All right, get up and go do my thing. And then I can go back to sleep. It's nice. Learn how to shield. Shields can be real simple. They don't have to be complex. You can visualize a bubble of protection around you, spiritual, positive white light around you to help protect you from the things. I do recommend that you cleanse your house periodically, set your wards. Post-COVID, I went through and I saged and Palo Santo'd and oh goodness gracious. Yeah, I needed it. It was good. And the house felt great afterwards. And I just doing a couple extras. Instead of just the monthlies, I'm doing it a little bit more often. That's part of the reason why I sneezed a little earlier is because the sage got in my nose. So yeah, charge and carry an amulet or other apotropaic materials. Atropic, excuse me. Great Scrabble word. Just means something that helps avert evil influences or bad luck. A charm, whatever it is. I often have a raven skull that I'm wearing. My chain broke, so I have something else on. I need to fix it. So, yeah. Basic spiritual hygiene doesn't just protect you from residual energies. It also protects you from the run-of-the-mill hexes. So, the go-to-hells, basically. Excuse me. And these practices are also the best initial treatment if you think you've been hexed. They strengthen you. They strengthen your protections. They strengthen your surroundings. and they break lesser malevolent connections and they weaken the stronger ones. They make it less likely that what got in once can get in again, making sure you've got those internal walls built up. And if what you can do or are comfortable doing isn't quite enough, ask for help. Send me an email, wildepaisley@gmail.com. I actually know people now. I laugh in jest a little bit, but I do. I know people all over the world, and I can connect you with someone. Get your magically inclined friends to add their power to yours for cleansing and shielding. They don't necessarily have to be pagans or witches to do it. Just as long as they aren't aggressively skeptical or thinking magic is evil, they can help. So when someone says, hey, I'm just going through a hard time right now, I would just, your positive vibes, happy thoughts, your prayers, that kind of thing, they're asking for help. Just send them a little bit of love and light. And that actually is helping to bolster their own internal cleansing and shielding. It does work best in person, but it can be done remotely, especially if the remote work is coordinated and done at the same time. So this past summer when we had the fires here regionally, I worked with several groups in the region to help kind of reset the weather and bring in some of that moisture that we desperately needed. And we did it kind of in a coordinated fashion. It wasn't everybody on the phone doing the same thing at the same time. We all had our set things to do, and it was awesome. So, yeah. Now, when it comes to hexing and cursing, we're going to leave there. Well, no, we can do this next section. I'm just checking time. We're almost to the top of the hour already, can't believe it. So when it comes to hexes and curses, you need to break the connection. So cleansing and shielding will take care of most of it, most of the hexes and curses that you're likely to encounter. Bad news is, if the cleansing and shielding doesn't quite take care of it, the next steps do get a little bit more complicated, because most magic does require connection. So you'll need to find that connection and break it. Cord cutting spells help, or rituals help. So can physical isolation. That's why it does help to know who is hexing you. So if it's someone you know and they keep coming into your house because you think they're a friend, but they're really not, that they're reinforcing that negative energy at you. Now, it is absolutely not true that people can't hurt you if you aren't aware of their magic. That idea is rooted in a materialistic worldview that sees magic as nothing more than psychological manipulations. Well, honestly, though, a competent magician can hex someone without their awareness. Really, truly, it can happen. However, the stronger the connection between the hexing magician and their target, the easier it is for the hex to get to the right place and do the most damage. So isolation, in person, in the spirit world, and on the internet, makes that connection harder to maintain. So maybe it's time to turn off Facebook for a little bit, or Instagram, or Twitter. I gotta tell you, I like Twitter. I like looking at some of the articles and stuff and what's going on, but at the same time, I really cut back on a lot of my social media stuff because I just got tired of all the negativity out there. And if I don't want to be a negative person, why would I be feeding myself all that negativity? It's kind of like feeding yourself poison all the time. So, yeah. So, be cautious of what you're taking in, because that can definitely impact your ability to keep those barriers up. So, while magic is more than psychology, there is, of course, a psychological element to it. So you take that away and the hex does become less effective. And another good spell is a mirror spell. Patty Wigington has some interesting curse-breaking techniques on pathos.com and also on the Learn Religions website. And there are some things that you can do to help break those. Patty is a prolific writer and author and has some really great information out there. She's one of those people that I enjoy reading as much of her stuff as I possibly can. I really do. On that note, I'm going to stop there before I go on to the next part, just because, well, there's more to read. And it's actually a really good informative article. But we are at the bottom of the hour, or excuse me, the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to do some singing bowl and keep answering questions if you've got them. And yeah, other than that, thanks for joining me this weekend. I managed to get online without screwing something up. I got to tell you, that operator error when it comes to technology is a pain in the butt. And it's just, I know better. I need to check things first. Yes, that's all there is to it. So, this is Paisley Wild. You're listening to The Spaces Between here on TFR and YouTube, and we will be right back. Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we're off adventuring into the spaces between. Hope you guys are just having a fantabulous day that ends in Y. Morning, afternoon, or evening. Or night. Wherever you're at in your day. Excuse me. And, yeah. I think we need some singing bowl before we do anything else. That's what I think. Because, yeah. Yes, singing bowl and coffee and candlelight. Yes. Let's see. Marilena, not Marilena. Suzanne asked me a question. Depending on where you're at, she wanted to know if there's books that are good for medicinal plants and herbs. So let me see. I have Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine, and that is by Andrew Chevalier. It's actually a pretty good one. Here, I'll just drop the link, Suzanne. I like books that tend to have good illustrations, partly because sometimes I just really want to see what's going on. Let's see, the Complete Book of Natural Medicine, or Natural and Medicinal Cures. I have that one also. I don't see it on Amazon. Oh, it's got to be on Amazon. But if you look around a little bit, you can find it. And then the Green Witch actually has some really good information too. So it's the Natural Guide, or your Complete Guide to Natural Magic of Herbs, Flowers, and stuff. Essential oils. It's you can get it hardcover or paperback. This one's on my to be read book or list actually. So come on. Why is this? There, I think that's right. We're close. So yeah, there's quite a few books out there. Try to get something that's going to have good images and good images and good directions on what to do, how to prepare the different herbs. I also have Wild and Weedy by Doreen Shababy. She's local to me here, and some really good recipes in there also. So yeah, just I don't know. I would start with the Encyclopedia and the Green Witch. That'll help you. And honestly, I'm a little bit of a bibliophile. You might say I have a small addiction to books. Okay, I have a big one. I've got thousands of books at this point. Yes. And I love books. And I get it, Suzanne. I noticed, here locally, our shelves are getting a little barer. Prices are going up. And with the COVID response and everything, it's been harder to get into the doctor and such. And so I've been, kind of keeping an eye. What do I have in the backyard that I can use for medicinal purposes? Your oak trees, by the way, really good resources. Yeah. Marilena, you're funny. Yes, the summer season has begun, and for you, their love, but here, our high tomorrow is 37 degrees Fahrenheit, and we have snow and sleet, rain type stuff, which is why candlelight and hot cocoa is yummy. So, talking about hexes and curses and stuff. So, extreme curses, because they are out there, they do happen. If the person who is sending you that negative energy has sent a demon or other malevolent spirit after you, things can get complicated. And you're going to need some help. Your ancestors, at the very least, your gods, your spirit guides, pray about it, make offerings for intervention, make amends if that's something that you might need to do that may have caused them to withdraw their protection. I don't know. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, is before you point the finger at someone else, examine what you've done. And then sometimes a good defense is a good offense. So I do have a pagan guide to cursing, which is interesting. We'll get into it after we get done with this article. Marilena has never experienced snow, just the occasional hail. Well, snow's, actually I like snow. It's just kind of cold and wet sometimes. So, now, if you've tried everything you can to clear the energy or clear the malevolence from your home, yourself, your family, whatever, call in a professional. Try to do it on your own first, but don't be afraid to ask for help. That's why, a lot of people will go to talk to the priests or the priestess, the local witchy groups, just because they know they need the extra help. And that's okay to ask for help. It really is. The best witch, druid, priest, or other spirit worker you can find, whomever that is. And, ask. Say, hey, I've got this thing going on. I need some help. Because you need someone with the knowledge and experience to figure out not only what's wrong, but also the skills and connections to do what needs to be done to fix it. Now, magic battles make for great fictional writing. The reality is generally not that dramatic. And those who wish us harm generally use more mundane methods, especially those who have the power to do so effectively. And traditionally, witchcraft has been employed as asymmetric warfare by those who had no other recourse. It happens, but it's not common. Just hexing and cursing are tools in the magic user's toolbox, and occasionally those tools are wielded against us. So, prevention is the best cure. And remember, what can't be prevented can be broken. Because yes, if something happens, well, you know what? You can fix it. You can come out of this. So, I mentioned Modern Pagan Guide to Cursing. That's another article by John Beckett. It's, just over a year and a half old. And I think I've talked about it in the past just because people talk about cursing all the time, hexing, that kind of thing. Seems like it's the new thing, new old thing, whatever. And I do see a lot of people out there who say, or a lot of responses to, well, something happened, I'm going to do something negative towards my ex because he really screwed me over or something like that. And others come back, well, it's not ethical, threefold law will make them regret it, that kind of thing. Just remember, just because you believe a certain way doesn't mean everybody does. And there's different traditions, different paths. Just like I'm not going to go to the Christian hell, I don't do the threefold law, that kind of thing. So be reasonable. Don't freak out or panic or call someone on the carpet for something. One of the things here that John wrote is a witch who cannot hex cannot heal. And I thought that was a really interesting point when I read this article, or we discussed it in the past, because there's a lot of energy in healing, and I I feel that hexing and blessing are similar energetic things, because it's magic is just magic. Magic is magic is magic. Magic is energy. Energy is magic. It can be good or it could be bad. It all depends on how you use it. Just like a hammer is a hammer is a hammer. You can use it to pound in a nail. You can use it to break a piece of wood. You can throw it through a window. I mean, there's all sorts of things. Sometimes you use it for good, and sometimes you just bang your finger and it's bad. So, it's how and why we use the energy for magic. And just like applications of mundane power, there are always unintended consequences. In other words, Mr. Beckett and myself totally agree here. There's no such thing as harm none, really, truly. Intention is not everything, and filling your spells with disclaimers, for the good of all, with harm to none, does more to weaken your magic than to protect you from metaphysical blowback. Sometimes you have to commit. You have to do the thing. It's like pulling out into traffic. Yeah, sure, you can ease out into it, but if you don't hurry your butt up and get out there and step on the gas pedal, you're going to get hit. So you got to commit. But there is a difference between losing control of your car and accidentally hitting a pedestrian and intentionally running someone over. One is a potential side effect we can work to avoid, and the other one is intentional harm. So, just like if you drive a car, you're capable of intentionally running over a pedestrian even if you never do it. You know, just working with magic, you have the potential to hurt someone, but you might not. You generally won't. It's not the plan. Cursing someone is kind of the equivalent of punching someone in the face. I've had those moments where I've really wanted to punch someone in the face. Yes. So, when it comes to magic, you either believe it's real or you don't. There seems to be no real halfway point when it comes to your someone's belief in magic. And I believe in magic, so it's hard for me to accept that someone else doesn't, but that's just my own biases coming out, and I know this. Sad. Some people throw curses because it makes them feel better to strike back at someone that they're mad at. And then when the curse takes hold, because they're upset because they hurt someone. And they never would admit it, but they often didn't think the curse would do anything, at least not that serious. Well, when you put it out there, you put the energy out there, the negativity, well, you know, things are going to happen. Magic doesn't always work in the way we would prefer, and rarely works as directly as it's portrayed in fiction. So when it comes to magic, all those things that you see on TV, throw them out the window. Don't focus on them, because it's going to misguide you a lot. Magic works. You do the spell right, you will get results. Just like if you wouldn't punch someone in the face, you shouldn't curse them, all right? If you're mad at someone, they did something that really pissed you off, and you punch them, right, in the face, the unintended consequence is you're going to punch them in the face, break their nose. Unintended consequence, you didn't throw the punch right and you broke your wrist. You know, so you got to pay attention to the trade-off there. And when it comes to throwing punches, you know what? You may or may not. If you're going to throw a punch, then I can understand the curse. But if you would never punch someone in the face, why are you cursing them? It's like a passive-aggressive attack. Don't do it. Now, sometimes we do work magic instead of punching someone in the face because maybe they're bigger or stronger, and physically attacking them would end really badly for us. And I get it. But if you're not ready to see someone walk away with a broken nose that you caused, you shouldn't throw a curse at them. Just straight up. Generally speaking, cursing is rarely, I should say, the best strategic move. So there's a quote that Mr. Beckett references. It's from the 1600s. And it says that living well is the best revenge. We've heard it, we've read it. Okay, I've read it because I read too much, but yeah, in almost all cases, those that have done me wrong, I don't necessarily want them to suffer as much as I have. So if I do have a certain amount of energy to expend, magical or physical, I'd rather spend that same energy building me up than knocking them down. That's Mr. Beckett says it, and I say it. I 100%. When it comes to the limited energy I have, yeah, I'd rather make me better than make them worse. Even if there's an active conflict, often it's easier and more reliable to protect yourself than it is to attack someone else. Really, truly. Shielding should be part of your daily routine. If you're having a difficult moment or going to be in a crowded place with unknown energy, increasing that shielding, that personal shielding is really good for you. I would do it. Charging your protective amulet is generally easier and more reliable than sending a demon or negative energy, entity, I should say, to attack someone. Honestly, truly, it's like, I'm going to charge my necklace, or I'm going to do this big working, and I'm going to call up a negative entity, and I'm going to have them sick them on someone else. Okay, well, you're going to need the weekend to recover, or you can just put on the pretty necklace, or the ring, or the bracelet, or whatever it is. Put the charm in your pocket, whatever it is. We all have finite amounts of time and energy. Make the best of what you have. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't times when sending that negative entity after someone is not the best thing. But generally speaking, what's the best investment for your time and energy? Really, truly. Think of it that way. What's your return on investment? Invest in self, or, throw sticks? Which is better? I tend to want to build myself up rather than asking for the divine to smite my enemies, if you will. Imprecatory prayers did not originate with the Christians. We've been asking for someone to rain hellfire and damnation on others pretty much ever since we started discussing hellfire and damnation. So it's been around for millennia. It happens. Sometimes you need it. Generally you don't. So the most important part of any magical working, of course, is the target selection. What do you want most? Do you want suffering for your enemy, or do you want success for yourself? Personally, for me, I want success. Why would I wallow in that negativity and cause suffering? I don't have the energy for it. That's not where I'm going to put my energy. I generally put it towards success for self. But as a witch, I have zero problems throwing stones right back at you. So, witchcraft is the recourse for the dispossessed. It does happen. So sooner or later, there will come a time when protecting and uplifting yourself just isn't quite enough, and it happens. Maybe someone's punching you in the face magically, metaphorically, or even physically. Because sadly, that does happen. Even though Mr. Beckett prefers to respond strategically and non-violently where possible, at the end of the day, he's not a pacifist. Well, you know what? Neither am I. I am not a pacifist. Anybody who thinks otherwise? Sorry, guys, not really. I just don't act similarly to others when I am exercised to do whatever it is I need to do. So, according to Peter Gray in the Apocalyptic Witchcraft book, he says, witchcraft is the recourse of the dispossessed, the powerless, the hungry, and the abused. It gives heart and tongue to stone and trees. It wears the rough skin of beasts. It turns on a civilization that knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. That book is also on my to-be-read list. I've got so many, my list keeps growing. I keep reading, but my list keeps growing. Sad. But no, it's I think that's why so many people are drawn to witchcraft and paganism, is because we accept those who have been damaged. Because they were powerless, maybe they were hungry, maybe they were abused, disenfranchised, just left adrift. and they're looking for an anchor. And paganism is a fantastic anchor, and you know, it's just, we welcome everyone. Historically, people have turned to witchcraft because ordinary avenues of power were closed to them. They were female or poor or both, perhaps religious minorities or people who had powerful enemies. If they couldn't get what they needed through ordinary means, they had to go find out how to do it with extraordinary. It happens. If someone is harming you and you can't make them stop through ordinary means, why wouldn't you use magic? Who plays by the rules when the rules were written by those who have demonstrated their intent to oppress you and others? Cursing is violence, yes. And like all violence, it can be expensive and messy and does have collateral damage. But if your only other alternative is submitting to oppression, can't talk suddenly, then cursing is the right thing to do. So this is part of the reason why I put that 24-hour hold on myself before I do a curse. Is this something that I would, after I've cooled down, but I still punch him in the nose for? Maybe, maybe not. I need to ask myself that. If after 24 hours, yes, I'm still as angry about the situation as I was, then I don't have a problem dropping that curse or that hex. I just don't. Generally, I try to make it as specific as possible, because if I am targeting someone for whatever reason, I want to actually strike the person I'm targeting, and limit, I should say, the potential for, friendly fire or hurting someone else. So it's a juggling thing. It's part of the reason why I do that 24-hour hold. This is something I'm truly committed to doing. And if I'm not truly committed to doing it, why would I do it? I can write a nastygram just as easily. Or send someone a letter and say, what the heck are you doing? And sometimes it's just the mental go-to-hell conversation. Because sometimes that's just what you need to do to get it off your chest and to let go of that negativity and that stuff that's building up. And instead of focusing on the negative for them, you're trying to build yourself up. But yes, sometimes you're at that point where the curse is the only choice. And sadly it happens. My candle is growing cat hair. Cats, they're everywhere, I tell you. So, we are almost to the bottom of the hour here, so we're almost our last half hour. So I'm Paisley Wild. You're listening to The Spaces Between on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. If you want to learn more about me and what I do and what's going on in my world, you can always check out my website. It's www.paisleywild.com. If you want to just support my radio habit, that's awesome too. I've got a cash tag. It's $TheSpacesBetween. And then while you're doing your research and checking stuff out, check out iLife.com. iLife is the official sponsor for Truth Frequency Radio. iLife combines the best of the high-quality ayahuasca, non-psychoactive though, with CBD to support all of you. Because you know what? We need all the support we can get right now. Period. End of sentence. And Suzanne, yes, oak trees. Oak leaves are antimicrobial if you make a tea out of them. Very earthy tasting, that tea. But, oak is good. Oak is strong, yes. So, bottom of the hour. When we go back, we're going to talk a little bit about baneful magic and such, and reflective magic and that kind of thing. And then, don't be afraid to ask your questions in the chat rooms or send me the email at wildepaisley@gmail.com. And I will be right back. Paisley Wild, and we're off adventuring into the spaces between.
Initiating the truth frequency.
We're having a great day.
It's Truth Frequency Radio.
So this is Paisley Wild, and we're off adventuring into the spaces between. And, yeah. Let's see, hold on. And, yeah. Awesome. So tonight we're talking about hexes, and a lot of people do, especially beginners, are worried about hexing and accidental hexing. You cannot accidentally hex or curse someone. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen that way. There has to be true intention, and it does take some energy. It takes some work. You can't just accidentally do it. It just doesn't happen by accident. I'm sorry, it doesn't. So, and yeah. Anyways, so I'm reading an article from Beckett on pathos.com, and it's John Beckett, excuse me, and kind of, yeah, hexes and cursing and baneful magic, that kind of thing. So there's a quote that he mentions from one woman that goes, don't kill if you can wound, don't wound if you can subdue, and don't subdue if you can pacify, and don't raise your hand at all until you've first extended it. It's actually a really good quote. And now, from the perspective of someone in a position of greater power, it still remains a good guide to working baneful magic, honestly. If you feel that someone is causing you harm intentionally, sometimes you need to know why. So I personally have an excellent resting bitch face, especially if I'm tired and kind of focused on other things, so I don't look very friendly sometimes. I just don't. And a friend of mine was a really good friend of mine, very, very hesitant to introduce herself to me because she thought I was pissed and angry all the time. I was just an angry person because my resting bitch face was just kind of like that. And but she introduced herself, and with a few conversations, she got to know me and found out that's not really what the dealio was. I just have a good resting bitch face, that's all. So yeah, begin with ordinary effort. Can you remove the problem? If so, cool. That's it, you're done. You didn't have to do magic. You just, that ordinary effort where it'll work is so much more reliable than magic, because you're doing that face-to-face, that true connection. And true connections are very, very powerful. Now, if ordinary energy or effort won't fix the problem, you work with your protective magic, your shielding, your warding, protective amulets, asking the protection from your gods, your spirit allies, your ancestors, that kind of thing. Generally, if I'm feeling a little targeted, I start with that, giving the boost to my protective magic, my shielding, just because I don't know what's going on, and I'd rather, protect myself a little bit more as I'm going into an uncomfortable situation. Now, you can do reflective magic, such as mirror spells, to send that negative energy back to the person who sent it. Now, it's not an example of harm none. It really isn't. But it is a low-intensity working or spell that can solve your problem without a huge confrontation. So if you are anti-confrontation, this might be something you want to consider. I get it. But it is a... Okay, I don't believe in the harm none bit, just because if you're doing magic, someone could get harmed. You just got to pay attention to it. So if you're moving up the ladder of how to fix the situation, try banishing. Conjure up a job for them in another state, or an opportunity elsewhere, or maybe a hot foot spell from traditional witchcraft. Don't hurt them. Just get them out of your way. It's those hot foot spells. Those are pretty good. And yes, they actually have hot pepper and other things. And yeah. Or if you were to that point where they won't stop, they won't leave, they insist on doing the things that's driving you nuts and hurting you, well, maybe it's time to bind them. Binding constrains someone from doing something. Freezer spells, for instance, are pretty good for this. Sometimes you can, the better choice is to make a poppet and tie it with a cord. Tie it up, seriously. Put some bondage on it. It's okay. Now, some do believe that binding crosses an ethical line. I don't. Mr. Beckett doesn't. He sees it as the next rung on the ladder. The absolute autonomy of the individual is not an inviolable law of nature. So you may be binding them from hurting you. It doesn't mean you're binding them and not letting them do their own free will. So pay attention. Now, with aggressive curses, sometimes binding just doesn't work, or maybe it doesn't work completely. So it may be time for something a little bit more aggressive. And you kind of have a progressive approach, if you will. So don't kill if you can wound, for instance. So don't just jump straight to, off with their head, because a killing curse is very much the moral equivalent of pointing a gun at someone and pulling the trigger. Now, if you're not comfortable with that concept, killing curses are not going to be your friend. Don't do it. Because, there are times that I feel that lethal self-defense is necessary and appropriate. But at other times, shooting someone is murder, just like doing a cursing that causes death is also murder. Unfortunately, our laws today are not written to be a reliable guide to ethics. But the reasoning behind the laws are useful. So make sure your choice is ethical, whatever it is you're trying to do. So magic is real, so treat curses very similarly to a loaded gun, because they could have that effect. Generally speaking, Mr. Beckett does not provide people with a list of curses. I don't either. I generally recommend the milder approach. Reach out and find out what's going on. Why is that person so frowning on you? Generally, that works. He says he rarely needs to resort to binding, much less some of those more aggressive curses. And generally, if he gets to that point, he writes a specific custom spell for that particular situation, just like I do. And developing your own curse will help you focus your will towards your goal, or convince you that you don't really want it. Because cursing is really, truly the BFG, big effing gun, or BFH in this case, the big effing hammer, in the toolbox of the magician. You don't need it often, and if you try to use it when you need a smaller tool, it'll just make things worse. But should you need it, you really do need it. In other words, not all problems are made to be fixed with a hammer. Hey, see you later, Lucky. Get some rest, and I will talk to you later. And I look forward to your show on Monday. The need to lash out, the need to respond when I've been put in a situation where I feel that urge to curse someone or hex someone. That's why I do the 24-hour hold. Is this something I truly want to commit to? It is not a choice that I make in the heat of the moment. I try to make it in the cold of the moment, if you will, and understanding the potential repercussions for whatever I might choose to do. Because, you don't want to, if you're going to put that energy out there to hurt someone, what happens if somebody really does get hurt, how are you going to feel about it? And if you don't feel comfortable about doing it, then why are you about ready to drop a curse? Just like if you wouldn't punch them in the nose face to face, why would you throw a curse? Now, again, I get it. Sometimes you need to, keep some space between yourself and the individual. And I get, and that's true. Just be aware. Be aware, not beware, but be aware of the repercussions. Now, sometimes we can actually accidentally curse ourselves. Did you know that? We can do that. It's complicated. So, say you want to wish something away forever. So, whatever it is, I can't even think of one for myself. It's generally not a widespread curse, but it can happen. And it's, I don't know. I don't know. It's just different, I guess. Remember, idle words are not curses. So self-help gurus do warn us to watch our self-talk, and they're not wrong. If we hear something frequently enough, no matter where it comes from, we'll often start to believe it, especially if we move into the word and use the words always and never, or I always screw this up, and I'll never have a decent life, or I'll never meet someone who wants to be my partner, or I'll never be lucky, or I'll never have the job that I want, or whatever it is. That negative self-talk, right? It happens, and I get it. Now, there's a huge gap between words spoken in anger or depression and actual magical working. So, if words alone could work magic, there'd be so many bad drivers out there that would just burst into flames. Can you imagine that? Yes. Yes. I've been stuck behind those people. So, now, beyond that, an obsession with careless words is often a form of toxic positivity and victim blaming. I hate those things. Remember, words can have great power, but they require the proper context to be anything more than idle chatter. You did not create a curse just because you said something bad about yourself. So, words plus desire, that's what magic is. So, the cliche, talk is cheap, well, yes. You can say pretty much anything, whether it's true or not, whether you mean it or not, whether it's harmful or not. You can say whatever you want. But if you put desire or energy behind the words and something changes, well, does that desire, that energy adds power. Often we are using the word desire in a sexual context. It's not necessarily what it means. Well, it can help you understand its role in creating magic. So desire isn't a want. It's not a whim. It's not a fancy. It flows from a deep primal need, something we have to have. Now, sometimes that need is short-sighted and fulfilling, and the desire may have serious unintended consequences, especially if it's done in a reactive manner. But it is deep and it is real. So self-curses generally begin as a desire expressed in words. I never want to see that again. Or I want my ex to come back to me. Or I just want to be normal. They're not just words. When there's power behind them, there's the power of desire. And, So words plus desire plus will, that's when you get your stronger magic. So a simple look at the state of the world shows that desire, no matter how strong, is a guarantee that change will happen. And we've seen it in our local news today, not just this last year, but today even. Let's see. Some of that is because even the strongest magic has limits. If you're trying to stop a hurricane or change an unjust society, you quickly find out that you may be strong. That storm is probably going to be stronger. On a personal level, though, getting results requires more than saying, I want. The universe is not full of servant spirits waiting to bring us what we ask for. I just want a house elf, that's all. Neither is it full of demons waiting for us to ask the wrong thing so they can give it to us and delight in our misery. That's in the storybooks, kids. Defining will can be difficult, particularly in a magical sense. Generally, it's choice plus commitment. Will is saying, out of many possibilities, I choose this, while also saying, and I will do what is necessary to make it a reality. Words powered by desire start the engine of magic. Will shifts the transmission into drive. When we want what we say we want, badly enough to work towards it, that's when we start to get results. Kind of like going on a diet. You can say, oh, I want to lose weight. But if you never do anything about it, are you really going to lose weight? Well, when you commit to it, you change your eating habits and your exercise habits, guess what? You're going to lose the weight. It's because you've committed to it. You've put the energy behind it and you're moving forward. Now, what if we say we want isn't what we really want, or if it's something harmful? Well, we can get it anyway. That's when it becomes a curse. So, when someone says, well, I think I've been cursed, they may actually be saying, I made a long series of bad choices, and it's easier to blame it on some witch I don't like than to admit that I might need to evaluate my decision-making process. That is such a true paragraph. Oh my goodness. Every so often, I do try to step back and reevaluate my decision-making paradigm. Am I making the right choices for the right reasons, or am I just kind of going off half-cocked and not really paying attention to the potential consequences? Yeah, you do need to ask yourself that. Sometimes it really is a curse, and sometimes it's a curse you put on yourself. Really. So, as always, when you suspect something has a magical cause, first eliminate the mundane possibilities, as I've already mentioned. Mundane problems are generally best solved with mundane solutions. And they're simpler. Sometimes more humbling, but similar. Divination's really good to help you find the cause. Now, if you suspect you've cursed yourself, well, let's do some meditation. Call up some old memories. Understand what you did and why you did it and why it was ultimately bad for you will go a long way not only helping you to remove the curse, but keep you from doing that or making that same mistake again. Garth Brooks has that song, Thank God for Unanswered Prayers. Yeah, that's a good way to curse yourself. You know, like, I want my ex back. Well, why do you want your ex back? Why is your ex your ex? Has that changed? Why would you want your ex back? So most self-curses are really truly just a form of binding. We don't necessarily really want to hurt ourselves. We just want to restrict ourselves and what comes into our lives in a way that seems right at the time. Ultimately, though, it does more harm than good. It's like changing your diet without understanding why you're changing your diet. I've had to cut out eggs because I'm allergic to egg yolks, which is frustrating. I've also had to cut out wheat. Not necessarily allergic to wheat, but I've noticed that I tend to get more migraines when I'm eating wheat. It may be some of the other things associated with wheat. I don't know. It's just easier to not eat wheat. That doesn't mean I'm going to curse myself to never be able to eat wheat again. I'd be missing out on so much. Instead, it's just conscious choice, eat a little bit healthier, and yeah, that's all. And now, self-harm is a little bit different. If you're considering self-harm, please reach out to the suicide hotlines. Send me an email, wildepaisley@gmail.com. There are other choices out there, and I want you to look at those before you commit to that path. Please. Now, bindings are relatively easy to undo, and actually they are pretty easy. You can do a cord cutting. It's just a ceremony. Often that's with a cord wrapped around 2 candles. You light the candles, and as they burn away, they cut the cord. And now there's words to be said, and that's specific to your situation, and that's good. But it doesn't have to be complicated. You can cast a circle. You can call the spirits. You can invite the deities you work with or your spirit guides, that kind of thing. Ask for some help. If you're going to go the full circle route, the full ritual, make sure you have something to represent yourself. like a picture, that kind of thing, or a puppet, it's probably going to get damaged. So if it's a picture or something you don't want to let go of, use something else. You just want to touch the object and look at it and accept it and repeat, this object is me and I am it. And then you take some cotton string or cord, wrap it around the object that is you, wrap it as tight and as many times as seems appropriate, and say, this cord represents the curse I've placed upon myself, the restrictions and limitations I've created. The more specific you can be with the words, the better. And then when you're done wrapping, tie it tightly and then cut any excess cord or string. Spend some time looking at the bound photo or object. Feel the binding around yourself and how they constrain you. Now, they've probably been there for a long time, but you can actually feel them now. You can feel those bindings and how you've restrained yourself, if you will. And now that you can actually feel it, you can do something about it. You can use a knife or scissors to cut the cords all the way through. Some people use an athame or a special knife. If you don't have one, a regular knife will do just fine. But as you're cutting, say, I sever and release the bonds I placed upon myself, or other words to customize the working for your specific situation. And as you're cutting the cords, visualize yourself growing looser in your posture and the situation and free. And then put the cut cords in a cauldron or their fireproof container and set them on fire. Burn them. I'm telling you, a little bit of fire is good. Hey, Julia. And watch them burn and feel the curse burning with them. Feel yourself completely free and ready to make new choices, better in alignment with your deepest desires and your true will. And when everything's burned up, say the curse is broken and I'm free to live as I choose to live. And then end the ritual. And then when the fire is cooled completely, gather the ashes into a bag of some sort and tie the bag shut using fresh cords and dispose of the remains somewhere out of your house and off your property. Take it to the grocery store or the gas station, drop in the garbage can, kind of a thing. It doesn't have to be buried somewhere, just get rid of it. Just like when you're cleansing your house and you're cleaning and everything, don't leave the dirt from your vacuum and your broom in the garbage can in the closet. Go ahead and take it all out into, to go to the garbage can. So it's out of the house and leaving that energy to move on and leave you alone. Now, the ritual I was just kind of overviewing will remove a self-imposed curse. It won't necessarily undo the damage. That's what shadow work and therapy is for. But it will allow yourself to open up to those paths of healing. Because sometimes you got to make that first step. And that first step is hard when it comes to healing and growing and changing your decision-making paradigms. Change is hard. Really, truly. Kind of like driving on a slick road and you want to make the turn and your wheels are turned, but you're going the same way. You have to catch up with yourself to go, catch the turn, right? So what is it you need to do to make the better choices and not get wallowing in that self-talk that's so not good for you? Hexes happen, curses happen. They don't happen as often as you see them on TV or as often as you see them on social media. If you do a divination, you have a card reading or rune reading or some other form of divination, don't jump to the conclusion that you've been cursed or hexed. And if someone is doing the divination for you, say, yep, you've been cursed or hexed and I can get rid of it for a couple $100. Okay, stop and think about that. Generally, no. Those are the scammers, and they make the rest of us look bad, unfortunately, and it's frustrating. And yeah, don't be a scammer. Don't do that. There are other ways to find the peace within to protect yourself and to do what you need to do. So if you guys have questions or you have show ideas or things you just want me to touch on, please let me know. My email again is wildepaisley@gmail.com. Let's see. Yeah, emails are good. I do respond to them, I promise. If you want to see what's going on in my world, www.paisleywild.com is my email address, and I will try to update it a little bit more often than I have been. Just getting back in the saddle after just a month of being sick in October. Holy cow. I don't know what happened in October. It just disappeared. Just gone. Halloween. It was September and then it was Halloween. I don't know. I miss so much, it feels like. And now it's November. It's the middle of November. I don't know. This year's just flying by. I'm ready for it to be done though. So, thanks for joining me tonight. This is Paisley Wild. We've been in the spaces between here on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, TalkStream Live, and on YouTube. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks for joining me. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. And I will see you guys next weekend right here, 9 p.m. Pacific time. Bye, guys. Have a good one.